Good morning, children. Hope you all are keeping safe at home. Today we are going to begin with the first chapter of history, that is how, when and where. Usually we think that history always deals with the dates. Yes, we have to study dates when the things happened. For example, when were you born? You will immediately answer me. But if I ask the question, when was your grandfather born or your father born, it will be little difficult for you to answer. But to know the history of your family, these all dates plays important role. But in the present history, it is not the dates at all. Even how the changes occurred, what process it had gone through also plays an important role. Children, as we all know, first we were all nomads. Our ancestors were wanderers. Gradually the things changed and now we are living in a civilized way. Yes? So when we study the history of evolution, we study everything, how the changes have evolved. So this is history. History is not about when things happen, it is how and where it happened. Clear? Now Robert Clive, he had a very broad perspective. When he was trying to rule our country, he had a different way to study our country's topography. So he asked Renan that I need the map of this country to administer our country in a better way. Because we know each individual has got a different perspective to look into a different situation. It may vary from person to person. If a Britisher is writing the history, he will only write about his way of administration. Similarly, when the rulers, kings, our Indian rulers were writing, the people whom they have appointed were writing only about their achievements, about their victories, about their battles, about their family, their children. They missed out the problems what the common people faced. Hence, Renan wanted to have the map of our country to study our country in a better way. In 1773, Warren Hastings was appointed as the first Governor General of our country, British Governor General of our country. He appointed James Mill to study the history of our country. James Mill wrote a famous book, A History of British India, in which he divided history into three parts. That is Hindu, Muslim and British period. He divided our country on the religious basis. But we all know that this division is not correct. It was not that when we had a Hindu ruler, all the common people, all the subjects followed the same religion. No. The common people followed different religion. When we had Muslim ruler, people were free to follow Hindu religion, Muslim religion and other practices. But James Mill divided into three periods on the basis of religion. He even considered Asians lower to Europeans. It was his perspective of seeing Indians. He considered Hindus and Muslims intolerant and uncivilized. He said Indians were superstitious about their religious practices. They practiced caste system, upper class, lower class. And he mentioned that only the British period was the civilized period that the Indians had. During in his book also, he had not written about the problems that the common people faced, the atrocities that the common people went because of the British rule. There was no religious freedom. The peasants and farmers were not allowed to grow the crops of their choice. They were treated as slaves. Moving forward, during the British period, during the colonial period, the people, there was no equality, there was no freedom, there was no economic growth that took place in our country, because people were forced to grow the crops what Britishers wanted. Many of the Indians left their family occupation. They moved on to in search of other jobs to feed their family. Hence, the colonialization took place. What is now colonialization? It is the subjugation of one country by another, which leads to economic, political and religious changes. It happened during the British period. The British perspective of seeing our country, our common people, was completely different from the viewpoint of Indians. Britishers felt to have a proper way of administration, we should maintain the proper records, so that even after many years, if we want to go through, we can go through these records and study what changes have to be done for the betterment. Hence, official records like memos, notings, all were preserved. Every administrative office had a record room attached to it, and people were appointed to write all these records beautifully, and these people were known as calligraphists. These records were preserved in museums. In early 19th century, all these records were handwritten. But as we move forward, by the mid of the 19th century, the printing had started. Hence, these records were printed. This was also the period when the common people started taking out journals and newspapers. They started writing about their grievances, their problems, what they faced during the British period. This was also a period when Britishers stressed more on surveys. If we talk about, even now we follow the system of survey. Every 5 years we have the survey, population survey. We do surveys on the literacy rate. We do survey on the unemployment, so that our government can study that how many people, what changes have happened, how many more people have got job, how many people are literate in our country, and what is the population growth of our country. So this was started during the British period. The Britishers did the survey depicting the interest of their own people, which was useful for them, because they wanted to know the topography, the flora and fauna of a particular region, because it will help them to study the soil, and they can ask the farmers to grow a particular crop which will yield them more production. But as I told you, this mid of 19th century, our common people, our educated youth also started taking out journals and newspapers. They started addressing the common people and showing their grievances and problems, what the farmers had faced, about repaying the taxes, about the increase in the revenue, and the people who were not given the job, the people who were working in the military, they were treated badly by the Britishers. No religious freedom. Even the social practices, there also Britishers interfered, naming that these were superstitious practices which the Indians followed. Even our tribals were not left. They were not allowed to enter the forest. They were not allowed to follow their religious practices. When our common people came together, this led to revolt against the Britishers, which led to many ways of aggression, which we will study in coming chapters. My dear children, hope you have understood the chapter. Please go through the notes which have been uploaded in the eCare and write down only the underlined notes in your classwork copy. Thank you. Have a good day.